the moment in the world that we've lived through. I love the concept of ABillion Thriving because it drives at the underlying thought that COVID has exposed that we're all in this same storm, but we're not in the same boats. And everybody's experience of COVID is so dramatically different. And how do we make sure that we rebuild in a way where all of us can prosper and win as we go forward economically, healthcare, education, and the challenges are immense. And the one thing I'm pretty confident saying, even as an outsider, is the old ways of approaching these problems have not gotten us to where we need to go. And we need to break down various systems with new solutions, but also new ways of coming together. And that's why at Skoll, we believe so firmly in the idea of social entrepreneurs and social innovation is being a fuel that can really drive this this vision of ABillion Thriving and bring it to reality. And, you know, we've funded a number of examples in India, including Dasra, who's doing incredible work of working across systems and pulling people together. It really is, social innovation is not just a new idea, but it's a new way of bringing people together around that idea across sectors and driving for change. Collaborating takes effort, it takes work, but the results are so much stronger. And, you know, my experience in government was, and my experience in the social entrepreneurship field is too often the solutions get baked separately and therefore it's much harder to collaborate. Whereas if you start together and have a vision and you can, the earlier you bring people into a conversation, the more likely they are to both make your solution better as well as be accepting of this new innovation or idea. And remembering, government has a challenge. It's, you know, with innovation and entrepreneurship, failure sort of in a, you know, you sort of fast failing as part of the psychology. You try something, if it doesn't quite work, you take what's best and you move on. In government, quite often there's a high price to pay for failure. Sometimes it's the newspaper, it's your opponents in government, whatever it may be. So it's also for social entrepreneurs and innovators to understand that and work with government to test out these ideas so that you're taking out some of the risk for them. And I also agree with use suffer and benefit. And I think philanthropy suffers and benefits from that privilege. I think it's our job to figure out how do we move past this privilege in a way where we're shifting power. And that privilege really is about power preservation, whether that's economic power, political power, whatever it may be. And look, that's a very hard journey. First of all, people don't give up power easily, even if you want to. Second of all, it takes hard work. It takes inner work to really understand where your privilege comes from, and that's a journey that I'm personally going on, and our staff at the foundation and our board is going on. But it helps. It forces you to think about where your implicit bias is. So one might ask the question, well, why go through all that pain and suffering? And the really short answer is because that's how you're going to have lasting impact. You really have to trust in the people who are closest to the problems, who have that lived and learned experience and proximate understanding of the challenges they're facing, if you ever hope to have enduring solutions that the communities buy into. And, you know, that shifting power is a journey we're on at the foundation. One of our ways of starting to think about that is, you know, I'm joining you actually from Colorado, but we're based in Palo Alto. You know, I am not going to know as much about where to invest money in India as you are. And so we've started something investing in system intermediaries, as we call them. It's a horrible term, but including Dasra, including the Nudge in India and others who are closer to the communities and can find those next great social innovations in a way that we, sitting in Palo Alto, are less capable. And then we can bring our assets, our networks, our skills to them and help them connect from the grassroots up to the sources of power to enable that shifting of power. I'll just use one example who we're blessed to get to work with quite often, the Nilekani family, who I think has really, every call I'm on with them, and we've done a lot, we spent some time with them as COVID hit to try and figure out how we could make a difference. And we're also part of another funding collaborative called Co-Impact with them. They bring so much value, not just to the discussions about India, but globally from their perspectives and their lived and learned experience in India, but also across the world in terms of how do we work in new ways and be innovative. And I think that's the advantage of family philanthropy. They're used to being innovative. They also bring networks and some of that connection into those sources of power that grassroots innovators need if they're going to grow their impact. I have to say, I've been so inspired watching how social innovators and frontline workers around the world, but we spend more time with social innovators, have responded to this crisis and rushed to the fire rather than away from it, pivoting their models. Arman, who you introduced us to, is completely pivoted their model on a moment's notice to respond to this crisis and get important health information out into the community in partnership with the government. It's just one example of the many people who have said, okay, I can't do business as usual. I need to shift what I'm doing and move forward. And it's exciting to hear that the Indian government is recognizing that and leaning in to supporting that work, because I think that's how you'll be able to grow it and scale it and reach that billion thriving number. And